Hello and welcome back to another torch review. Today I have the Lumintop worm in for testing. This is the latest generation, the version 4, and this was supplied by Gearbest. I have put up on the screen the main features of this particular model. As you can see there, 3 power levels, and it runs on a AAA cell, a single cell. Now the back was covered with a sticker, so I will list out the specifications and details on the screen here for you. You can see we have 3 power levels from 5 up to 110 lumens. It's also IPX8 water resistant and it's impact resistant as well. You have a choice of a few colours with this particular model, and we'll get straight into looking at the package, the retail pack that you get with it. You can see you get a small case here where you could stash the torch in it if you wished to. Taking that out, you will see that we get some O-rings, 2 O-rings, and there's the keychain here which you can attach if you want to. It's something that I would attach if I was using it on keys, possibly not if I was keeping it in the house. Now you can see the size, quite a small unit here, 2.6 inches. So it's one of the smallest torches that I've looked at for a single cell AAA. And looking at the design, you can see the name worm comes from the obvious styling on the body. That gives you quite a nice grip to it. The clip is built into the body too. You have the hole there where you can attach the chain to if you wish. On the top we have a silicone band. You can remove that if you wish. That gives you extra grip and helps with the one-handed operation. Looking at the LED and reflector, you can see there we have the XPG2R5, and we also have a dimpled or orange peel effect on the reflector, so that should spread the light out more evenly. Unscrewing the top, there's quite a fine thread on this. You see the contact point on the top, and there is a spring inside. Haven't had any problems with different batteries that I've tried. Sometimes you can get slightly longer AAA cells. I have a high capacity Sony one. This is rated to 1000 milliamps an hour. So you put that in, positive terminal up, and then we'll screw that back on. Once it's screwed in, the light comes on. That's how the mechanism works. There's no buttons on this, so it just uses the screw mechanism. So unscrew it slightly and it's off. If you just unscrew it a little bit, you can actually momentary on with by pushing the top down. You can use the silicone band. Don't know whether that's something that you'll use, but normal operation you would just twist it and then twist again to change the brightness levels. It does default to the medium brightness setting, so for some reason they've decided to do that, so you'll have to cycle through if you want the low or the highest output. Personally, I probably would have gone starting off at the low, working up to the high. Here is a quick comparison with another single cell AAA torch. This is the PF1 from Thorfire. It's quite a bit longer. To be fair, it's one of the larger single cell torches that I've used. You can see the reflectors are a little bit different. They're both orange peel style, but the Lumintop worm is a bit shallower, so we're expecting a wider spread. You can base or tail stand the torch. You can put it on its head, but you won't be able to see if it's been left on if it's on a flat surface. Quick shot showing you with the keychain attached. And you also get, as a nice bonus, the silicone ring is glow in the dark, as is the internal ring behind the lens, so you can possibly find the torch if you drop it. Lowest setting is 5 lumens. I personally think it's slightly lower than that in real life. Comparing it to other torches, it's probably around about 2 or 3. And a quick test on the beam shot inside at close distance, about 6 foot. You can see we have quite a diffused, spread out light pattern, which is what I would expect for a torch of this type. IPX8 water rated, so I put this in the jar here for about half an hour and didn't have any problems with that. Now outside test, we're starting off with the worm. We're at the highest level here, and you can see down the bottom of the garden we can reach that at the top level without any problems. The visibility with your eyes is going to look a bit better than this, particularly around the edges. It's always quite difficult to video these torches and the beam patterns. So quite a good power output. They're saying 110 lumens. It certainly seems similar to that. And we drop down to around about 32, the mid-level. Onto the Thorfire, you should see that despite the fact they've got quite a similar power rating on the sheet, their Thorfire is rated to around about 100 lumens at the top setting. It's a narrow beam, and I think it's probably a little bit less than that in real world, probably about 80 or around about that level. If I compare the two, you should see the difference between them, the worm, and then on to the Thorfire, you see it's a much narrower beam pattern, so you get a bigger spread with the worm Quick telephoto test. You'll be able to see reasonable distances with this. It's not a huge range torch, and you won't get that from a single cell AAA, but it's certainly good enough. Around about sort of 50-60 foot, you'll be able to see what you're doing. Outside, further distance of about 16 foot, you can see the beam pattern spread out a bit. And a close-up beam test here. Get quite a wide angle of view, which is probably the ideal type of pattern for a torch of this type. It's really designed for convenience. But it does kick out a reasonable amount of power. Starting off with the high level here down the side of the house, and then I'll drop it down to the medium. For general purpose and outside use, I would say medium is plenty bright enough. Here's the mid level here, so if you're around about sort of 20-30 feet, need to see items in front of you, it's certainly going to be good enough, and you will get extended run times on that power setting. Inside onto the low of around about 5 lumens, I think it's about 3 myself, but you can see it's plenty bright enough to see what you're doing. Some people might prefer a sub lumen low mode, but with only 3 levels, I personally think they've made the right choice. Now you'll notice on the left the worm and the PF1 on the right. The Thorfire has some flickering, that's a PWM issue. You don't see that in real world, but there's no such problems on the worm, just in case you do actually take any videos using these torches. Quick shot outside. High would really be for extending the range a bit if you need to see around about sort of 50-60 foot. The low mode will actually do quite nicely if you're around about 8 or 9 foot away from something. Now this is my battery runtime test. I'm using a high capacity Sony, which is about the highest I've come across. It just rated in at just under 1000 milliamps now. That's an actual test of the capacity, and the quoted half an hour runtime for high is actually a bit longer. You get maybe around about 43-44 minutes. It starts to dim, reduce the power output level, and eventually starts to flash to let you know that the battery has run out or is low. Now on the high level, you can see me here wandering around. That's a good mode if you need to open up some wider areas and need the brightness of that, the intensity. Remember, this is a smaller torch, but the output's pretty good for a single cell. I'm fairly impressed with this. You'll have to move up to lithium or AAs to get a bigger power output. Wrapping up with a quick summary on the Lumintop worm. Overall, I like this torch. It's a super compact, tiny torch, and as such you have to tailor your expectations according to that. But the idea here is convenience, and AAA cells are very easy to get hold of. The power output is quite good for a torch of this type. It's certainly one of the brighter ones, and I also like the design on the body, easy to grip, and the silicone band that's included. That does help to one-handed operation on the torch, which could be a problem with the previous model. I also found the runtimes are actually a bit better than indicated, so make sure you get a good quality high capacity AAA cell nickel metal hydride to use with this. There's only really one weak point for me, and that is the torch always starts with the mid power level. Personally, I would have just started it off at the low and then let the user cycle through the power levels, so that's something that I'd like to see addressed. But in other areas it's a very nice compact torch. So don't forget to subscribe. I'll be doing more torch reviews shortly, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.